Hey friends, today we're going to be doing something a little different than my usual style of content. Instead of it being a musical performance, it's still going to be music related, but this is something I've been wanting to do for a little while now. And I wanted to talk about music theory because I've spent a lot of time exploring music theory and learning music theory. And this is sort of music theory adjacent. It's very subjective, it's an opinion piece type video. So even if you don't know anything about music theory, stick around. We'll all wear our music theorist caps today, and we'll just discuss the way I view modes and scales. And we're going to be looking at 18 today, the seven church modes, Ionian through Locrian. And then we're going to look at some scales that I've encountered frequently. And we might do a follow-up video to this if this does well. This is sort of a experiment, a pilot, if you will, for more music theory related content. And don't worry, music performance videos are not going to be leaving this channel. I just want to do them both in tandem with one another. So let's get into it, really. Even if you don't know anything about music theory and you don't recognize these scales, I will be providing audio of the scales. So you can form your own opinions alongside me as we go through this tier list together. I hope y'all enjoy. We have officially begun the tier list. So as you see, I've got S, A, B, C, D, F. Pretty standard tier list, S being superb, which is what I assume S stands for. And then, the regular ranking system, grading system. So we're going to start at the beginning, a very good place to start, to reference the sound of music here. And that's very topical because we're starting with Ionian based on the first scale degree. So do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Ionian sounds like this. So with Ionian, it's given us the crux of what we think of as happy in Western music theory. We can think of tunes like Mary Had a Little Lamb or Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, the nursery rhyme type tunes. So Ionian is very happy. And I'm going to put it firmly in B tier. It's really solid. It provides a great foundation for some really, really cool stuff. But I can't justify putting it in S tier or A tier because it's nothing spectacular or mind blowing. We're also familiar with it and desensitized to it that it's familiar but not exciting. So next we have Dorian. And I absolutely love Dorian. It's built off the second scale degree, the supertonic. It sounds like this. And the thing about Dorian, to me, it has this very triumphant and heroic character to it. Um, I think of, if you want to reference some film scores here, the Riders of Rohan theme from Lord of the Rings is a great example of this. Rey's theme from the Star Wars sequels uh, is also a great example of this, and even the Avengers theme uses it. It definitely establishes that heroic, triumphant quality. So for me, it's going low A tier, or it will be low A tier when I apply more modes and scales. Next up, we have Phrygian, built off the third scale degree. It has a very intense, intimidating sound. There's a real air of gravity to it. It sounds like this. So, Phrygian, I really, really like it. It's a minor oriented mode because it's got that minor third in it. But instead of me, re, do, which, if you're not familiar with solfege, you have do, re, mi, which would be a major third. But if we flatten that third, it becomes me instead of me. And if we flatten that second, instead of re, it becomes ra. So we have do, ra, me, which sounds like this. And with it, we can embody this very intimidating intensity, right? I feel like it would go great for villain themes in video games or movies. Um, and if I ever get the chance to score a film or a video game or something like that, I would definitely be using something very Phrygian as far as my melodies go for a villain theme. So I'm gonna put it below Dorian. If Your protagonist has a theme, go Dorian. If your antagonist has a theme, go Phrygian. So next up, we have Lydian, built off the fourth scale degree, Fa. It sounds like this. So with Lydian, the fun thing about it is it's amazing. I absolutely adore Lydian. It's got this effervescent, coquettish, sort of playful feel to it. Um, if you want a great example of how to use Lydian effectively, go listen to some of the music from Legend of Zelda. I'm specifically thinking of Ocarina of Time here with Saria's song. And if you just really want to have a good time, look up the Saria song where Darunia dances to it because Homeboy goes nasty on the beat. I absolutely love it. Lydian is the first in S tier because Saria's song just it really makes it. It's hard to make Lydian sound bad because you can use that tritone of the root to the sharp fourth in order to get this just it's really like I said playful would be the way for it. And that's why I think that it suits Saria's song so well. So, that's what Lydian embodies to me. Next up, we have the fifth mode based around soul, Mixolydian. It sounds like this. So this might be my inner blues man talking, but I really like Mixolydian, not as much as Phrygian or Dorian. I'm putting it in A tier below Phrygian, so lower A tier. And the reason why is I feel as if we're almost desensitized to it in a similar way we are to Ionian, but it's still got that little bit of playfulness in the way it teases you with not giving you the leading tone as seven, but instead a flatted seventh. But we're so used to hearing it as like a what we call in music theory a 5-7 of 4, which would be one as a seventh chord, a major minor seven, a major triad with a flat seven over it. For those of you who aren't familiar with the terminology, and it leads into the four really well. And that's a very blues oriented way of doing things. And so I'm so used to flat sevens being used as harmonic push and pull in order to get where we're trying to go that to me it's sort of gone smooth on me, but it is highly effective, especially if you're building melodies. I think of Mixolydian a lot with AC/DC, um, and a lot of that classic rock type sound. Hair metal uses it a lot, I've noticed. Look at Wanted Dead or Alive, for example. You've got that D, so you're thinking, oh, we're in D, and it resolves to D. But then the second chord is C, a flat seven, then to G, then to D again. And you've also got that minor third in there with an F, but we're not going to worry about that for the time being. Right now, we're just talking about that harmonic function. And I think Mixolydian is great for 1 flat 7 4 1 progressions. So, A tier. I can justify that. Aeolian. It sounds like this. And for those of you who know music theory, it's very similar sounding to the natural minor scale. And that's because it uses the exact same notes. So Aeolian is great, but much like Ionian, it's in Western music theory what we think of as sad. So it's going in B tier. Actually, I'm going to put it above Ionian just because it's slightly spicier. So we've got that going for it. And you can look to melodies, pretty much any simple minor melody. House of the Rising Sun's an example, even though you get that harmonic minor with that E7 in it, or that, 5 major. I'm fairly certain the entire melody is just Ionian, unless you're, doing embellishments or you've really rubbing some dirt on the melody, as it were. So Locrian. I have very strong opinions about Locrian. To me, it it's actually, you know what? We've got S through F tier here, and I am going to make another tier right now. F minus, because that's where Locrian goes. Locrian goes in F minus. Uh, so it's to me because it sounds like this. It makes me very uncomfortable. It doesn't resolve. It doesn't feel resolved to me. And perhaps, that's unsophisticated taste on my part, but this is an opinion piece. So I can be a little bit mean to this mode if I want to. Frankly, it's just ugly, rancid. It's disrespectful. It's insubordinate and churlish, to quote Key and Peele here. Uh, I assume that it was named after either a person or a region, much like Phrygian or any of the other miscellaneous things throughout history that have been invented that are named after their creator. For example, the toilet was invented by a fellow with the last name Crapper. Uh, that's not a joke. Look that up. So whoever Mr. Locrian is, if I could go back in time, I would personally advise him to maybe not pursue music and get a day job, like I don't know, an accountant or something, anything but music. Uh, it just this mode sucketh. I'm heated if I'm busting out the King James version speech. Um, sorry that it hath burst out on thee. Prithee forgive me though, and let's move on. So major pentatonic. Think My Girl, right? The intro riff to that. It sounds like this. Major pentatonic makes great melodies. Think of Amazing Grace, for example. That is very staunchly in the major pentatonic scale. So I'm going to put it right above Aeolian. Hold on. So I think it's great. It forms great melodies. And we'll move on because really that's all there is to say. It's perfect for making melodies. A lot of Scots Irish folk tunes use it. And similarly, the minor pentatonic scale is the same sort of situation. It goes high B tier. Actually, I'm going to put it above Mixolydian. I'm going to put major pentatonic there too because they're both great for melodies. And House of the Rising Sun, actually, I think the entire melody is minor pentatonic. Fact check me in the comments if I'm wrong because I'm just speaking off the cuff here. So I'll I'll go back and edit in a song for an example of Aeolian. I'll put some text in or something over the video there. So blues scale, S tier. Um, the thing about blues scale is it is the glue that holds all of my solos together. I'll reference other scales in my solos if I'm improvising, but the blues scale is the glue that holds them together. It sounds like this. And it is amazing. It just has major swank factor. It really lets you put some soul on it. It also made so many guitarists' career. Go back to the 70s, 80s, well, even as far back as the 60s, and even roots rock like Chuck Berry. I love him, but he had one riff, and it was very firmly in the blues scale, and it worked because it was a good riff. But if you listen to Johnny Be Good and then Run Run Rudolph, right? It's the same riff essentially. But it worked because the blues scale is very effective at creating catchy and gripping riffs. So next up we have Byzantine. And the Byzantine scale sounds like this. And I love it. It's very reverent to me. It's very similar to Mixolydian or I mean Phrygian because you've got the flat 2, but instead of a flat 3, you've got a major 3. So the thing about this is it has two tendency tones with the sharp 7. And it just creates this very ethereal and reverent tone to me. I can't think of any other word for it but reverent. Um, I feel like if I were scoring a movie or a video game and the protagonist just came to this ancient temple, right? This is what I would use to convey the ancient magic of whatever the wizard's temple is or something like that. It has this real gravity to it, more so than Phrygian, I would say, because it's essentially got the two leading tones with the sharp 7s, if you want to think of it as resolving to the 4 or the 1. Because you get those close, those half step leading tones, which carry more weight emotionally, in my opinion, because it feels more intact. And I think that may be priming of our brains, the priming of our brains from Ionian, right? Because we get T, Do, um, is our leading tones. So for that, Byzantine is up here. Uh, yeah, it's easy S tier. Think of the Byzantine scale as if it's built off the fifth scale degree of a harmonic minor scale. You just provide a leading tone to the root as well. It carries so much weight, and I love it. Bebop scale, it's going up here between Dorian and Phrygian. It's very swanky. It sounds like this. It's just really great for jazz solos. Uh, I love it. It's got a real swank factor about it, obviously, but it's just great for jamming. You know, it's especially if you're doing like fast paced jazz solos, you get the little bit of chromaticism. So it's technically an octatonic scale, because it's got 8 notes instead of the seven plus the root again at the top. That's really all I have to say about it. It's good stuff. Hirajoshi scale. So this is going in the top of A tier because it's almost like the pentatonic scale. It is a pentatonic scale. What we refer to as the pentatonic scale, broadly and somewhat myopically speaking, is the anhemitonic pentatonic scale. So this is a pentatonic scale. But the cool thing about it is it's like the Phrygian version of a pentatonic scale. It has this air of mystery and elegance, is what I would describe it. It feels very regal in a sense because it commands authority. Uh, that air of mystery plus the just extra half steps, it creates this really lovely sound. So, whole tone scale. I'm going to put it in C tier. It's very purpose built. If you are in charge of a TV show and you're scoring it, and it's specifically a sitcom, because that's where I primarily hear this, and you're trying to convey a flashback scene, you're going to play a whole tone scale on a harp. That's just what it is. It's purpose built for that. Um, I I could see it being used melodically in some ways, but personally, I am not intelligent enough to pull that off. So that's what I think of that. I got them kind of out of order here, but we're going to go chromatic next. Same thing. Chromatic is everything and nothing. It sounds like this. And the thing about it is it's just so versatile that I can't embody a characteristic to it. I can't imagine saying, like for Dorian, for example, how it sounds heroic. The chromatic scale doesn't have a character because it's all of the notes, or all the notes that we use in the West. We don't use quarter tones very frequently. Most of our instruments aren't suited for it. Uh, but that's neither here nor there. The important part is I would put it below whole tone because at least whole tone has a characteristic. But the chromatic scale is cool if you're, I guess, doing an impressionistic piece and you want to create a run. It creates a lot of upward or downward motion. And actually, something I would point to that uses it well, but it's not basing its melody in it, would be if you go back to the Generation 1 Pokemon games, the introduction to the battle scene when you get the random Pokemon encounter, uh, it's just a chromatic scale being used to create that excitement ascending. It's really good, but I wouldn't use it for anything but a flavor. I wouldn't try and build a melody around it. And of course, you can get you can get into some high music theory pieces that are based around the chromatic and non-tonal music, all that. But we're not going to dwell on that now. Harmonic minor, it's really good. It's natural minor but moodier. We're gonna put it above Aeolian. It sounds like this. It just creates some really cool tension. It's minor with a leading tone. I mean, I can't knock it. So we've got a melodic minor. So it's minor with a raised 6 and a raised 7. You can think of it as major with a flat 3 if you want. I suppose it'll share all the same tones. So we're gonna put it right here because it's like harmonic minor uh, with Dorian tendencies. It can sound very fancy, it can sound very heroic. Uh, but it also creates a minor one chord, a minor tonic, but a major subdominant and dominant chord. So 4 and 5 can be major, which is just, it's a nice texture. So we have what I've heard referred to as melodic major. So that's what I called it here, but I said or Mixolydian flat six. So it sounds very weird. It's got a major third and a flat six and a flat seven. And I'm going to put it up here above the bebop scale because I think it just has this really neat sound to it. I actually used it in a piece I wrote called Walking Through the Forest with a Limp, which I will put an annotation on the screen for if any of y'all want to hear that. I used it in the midsection, so feel free to click that. But I think the technical term is Mixolydian flat six, but I like melodic major because it's an inverse of the melodic minor. If you want to see this used really well, look at Indian music. So we did a piece in choir called Desh, and I'll put the link to that in the description if you want to hear it. It uses that melodic major, as a friend of mine called it, and it really stuck with me at least. But apparently the technical term is Mixolydian flat six. So with that, we've got this almost perplexing character to it. We're so used to Ionian or the major scale that it catches us off guard, but it can lead to some really cool harmonic motion as well if you're going for more of a Western harmonic foundation where you can go from major one to minor 4 and 5, sort of the inverse of melodic major. So I really like it, especially because, major 1 to minor 4 is always a great harmonic motion, in my opinion. So earlier, I said we're going to be ranking 18, and that's a lie. Because I wanted to include, let's see if I get this right, super, ultra, hyper, mega, meta, Lydian. Thank you, Jacob Collier, for making it so many words long and hard to say. So the thing about this is it is modes on top of modes on top of modes, and it deserves its own tier. So here we are. So here is S plus, where it goes. It is far beyond my comprehension musically, because Jacob Collier is a little jazz wizard and an absolute genius. So it goes up there simply because I can't understand it. This concludes our tier list of scales and modes. Obviously, there's plenty more to go over, but these are the ones that I'm most familiar with, and the ones that I feel as if I could intelligently, well, if you want to call that intelligent discussion, speak on. So I hope y'all enjoyed this video. If you want to see more like this, support this video, give me likes or whatever, comments, whatever you want to do to show that you like it, because I'd love to do more music theory content in the future, and I've got some more stuff planned for it. It's just taking a little bit of prep work. So in the meantime, I will still be doing music performance videos, and I've got some really neat stuff on the back burner that should be coming to fruition soon-ish, but we're going to make it work. So, you guys have a blessed day, and that'll be the end of this video.